The last kind of price discrimination that we're going to talk about is called price discrimination by self-selection. So in the first case, perfect price discrimination, the firm knew the willingness to pay of each consumer or of each consumer's transaction. So they know how much you'd be willing to pay for the first, the second, the third, and they can charge you right up to the price you're willing to pay. In the second example, they didn't have as much information. Instead, they could identify which market you belonged to. Like it could be a different country, it could be that you're a student instead of an adult, and so on. And they would charge each population a different price based on the underlying different demand curve of that market or that population. In the third one, the firms have even less information in some sense. They have no way to tell which type of customer you really are, and so they can't charge different customers different prices, but they can offer all customers the same menu of prices, the same options, but carefully design that menu so that everyone selects into the type of price that is best for them, but also best for the firm. So an illustration of that, let's do an illustration after just briefly summarizing what we've got here. So wrong unit, here we are. All right, so this is called price discrimination by self-selection. And it's also known as second-degree price discrimination. And the first example, which I think illustrates the idea pretty well, is the idea of a quantity discount. So what we've got down here in this box is Walmart's price as of 2018 for photos. And you can see that there are, they're all 4x6 photos, and they're all available in an hour, but there's two different prices. You can get a price of 25 cents per photo or a price of 19 cents per photo. But everyone has the same prices offered to them, but if you buy less than 74, you pay one price, and if you buy more than 75 or 75 or more, you get this new lower price. So this is like an extremely common pricing strategy. Tons of firms do this where they offer bulk discounts, right? And the logic behind the bulk discount, there's kind of two arguments for it. One is that maybe it's cheaper for the firm to process a bulk discount, and so they pass some of that savings on to the consumer. But there's also an argument for a bulk discount like this for price discrimination by self-selection. So how does that work? Let's take a look. So let's suppose for Walmart, they believe that there are two underlying populations of consumers who want to buy photos at Walmart. Okay? There's people with inelastic demand, and there's people with elastic demand. So the elastic demand people are price sensitive, and let's argue and say that the reason they're price sensitive is because they want to buy a lot of photos, and since they want to buy a lot of photos, they're going to shop around and try to get a good deal. Okay? They have a large need. Walmart's not the only place in town though, so they have to kind of compete with these guys. On the other hand, there's more casual users who have a relatively inelastic demand, but they don't need many photos printed either. And one reason they have an inelastic demand is because it's not worth them shopping around and trying to save a few pennies by finding a place that offers, 23 cents instead of 25 or whatever. They're only going to print, say, 10 photos anyway, or maybe 50 or whatever. But these guys printing maybe hundreds, those differences make a big, can really add up. So specifically, let's assume that we've got this guy over here. We're going to say demand is given by 0.5 minus 0.01 Q. And this guy's demand is given by 0.3 minus 0.001 Q. So this is capturing this idea that I was talking about. If this guy is not going to get any photos, the maximum price he's willing to pay is 50 cents. But if he bought, let's see, if we multiply this by, 50, he would basically, the price would fall to 0 because 50 times 0.01 is going to be 0.5. This person over here would be willing to buy more like 300 photos if they were free, but they're not going to pay more than 30 cents for any one photo. Okay? So given these prices, each one of these consumer types, which are the firm knows they're out there, but the firm doesn't know which type each person is. And so each consumer thinks about, well, which of these two prices do I want to take? So let's start with the elastic guy. He's easier. So what does the elastic demand choose? Well, if the price is 19 cents, we can figure out how many photos he wants to buy and see if it meets the requirements. Okay, so let's change this to 0.19, change this to 0.3. Well, we don't change anything, just rewrite it. Subtract 0.19 from both sides, add 0.001q to both sides, so this is 0.11. Divide this by 1,000th, which is the same as multiplying both sides by 1,000, and we get 110. So at the price of 19 cents a photo, this guy's going to want to buy 110 photos, which is well over the limit. So he's going to take it because he wants, why wouldn't he take the lower price if he can get it? The other firm is a little bit more interesting. So the inelastic guy, if the price is 25 cents, his demand is as follows. We get 0.01 over here equals 0.25 by subtracting 0.25 from both sides. Multiply each side by 100. He wants to buy 25 photos at this price. Okay. Notice that puts him in this category. If he got a lower price, would he want to spend more than that amount? Let's see. How many would he buy at 19 cents a piece? So this is at the 25 cent mark, and this is the 19 cent price. Well, now he'd be buying, I think we're going to find he's going to buy, if we multiply this by, 19 minus 0.5 is not 11, it's actually going to be 31. So this guy would up the amount he would buy to 31. Problem is that 31 is not enough to basically justify the cost. Like 31 would not get him this price. The question is, can this guy buy a couple extra photos or a lot of extra photos and basically access the better price even though he's not going to use it? And this problem is called the incentive compatibility constraint. So right now, it's pretty easy to see that these prices work well for the firm because the firm would like to charge a higher price to the people willing to pay more and a lower price to the people who will buy more and really respond to that low price. Okay, if we calculate their prices, like their profits, we can see that they'll make a lot more money if they can get these inelastic buyers to pay 25 cents and these elastic buyers to pay 19 cents than if they offer 19 cents to everyone or 25 cents to everyone. All right, and that's a little exercise you can do, but let's focus on this topic. So it's better for the firm, but as I said, the key with self-selection is that they need to offer a set of choices that are also better for the consumer. And so we have to ask the question, is the inelastic demand customer better off buying 75 at 19 cents a piece, or is he better off buying 25 at 25 cents each? Okay, we know that if he could choose how much he would want, he would buy 31. But that doesn't necessarily mean that 32 or 33 or maybe even 75 doesn't ultimately better. And the way we figure this out is we have to calculate his consumer surplus. Whichever of these prices gives him more consumer surplus is the one he'll choose. So this is what I mean when it says the price, people self-select because they choose what's also best for them. So at CS is consumer surplus here. So let's look at this demand chart and figure out how we're going to calculate his consumer surplus. So we know that this is 0.5 up here. This is Q. And at a price of 25 cents, we said he's going to buy 25 of these things. So this is a triangle. His consumer surplus is given by this triangle up here. The height of this triangle is 25 cents. The width is 25 photos, but it's a triangle, so we divide by 2. This is like 1/4 of 25 is something like 6.25 divided by 2 is 3.125. Okay? How do we think about the case where he has to buy 75 photos? Well, let's draw this thing all the way out to here. And he's accessing a lower price here, 19 cents. So we know from here that he would prefer to buy 31. So that's the consumer surplus he gets from those first 31. But he's not allowed to get this price of 19 unless he buys at least 75, which is maybe out here. So how do we incorporate this other stuff? Well, let's take the price out to here and think about what his consumer surplus is in each of these cases. Remember, consumer surplus is equal to willingness to pay minus price. So in this region here, which goes from 31 to 50, his willingness to pay is less than 19 cents. It's this triangle here. So this area here is negative. Okay? So we have to figure out the area of that triangle, and that's going to be negative. Also, the area from 50 to 75, so this is very badly drawn, not to scale, is also negative because his willingness to pay above 50 is 0. He doesn't want the photos, he's just going to throw them away. So all this area is also negative. And so his total consumer surplus is this positive area plus this negative area. So let's figure out what that is. So this is 0.5 up here. This is a height of 0.31, a width of 31. So this is 1/2 31 times 0.31. That's equal to 4.805. So we can see that if he could just get a price of 19, then as expected, he would get more consumer surplus. But we also have to now take into account this negative area. Okay, so this first triangle here has a height of 0.19 from here to here, and a width of 19. And we have to divide by 2 because it's a triangle. So that's, let's call this negative area, that's equal to 1.805, negative though. And then this area here is a box with area, a height of 19 cents, because he's not willing to pay for the photos, so the whole difference between price and his consumer surplus on each photo is negative 19 cents. And he's buying 25 of these photos that he doesn't value. And the cost of that is negative 4.75. So if we add all this together, negative 4.75, negative 1.085, and positive 4.805, we're going to get, it's not going to look good, basically. So 4.805 plus negative 1.805 is 3. And 3 minus 4.75 is the whole taken all together. The consumer surplus is negative 1.75. So it's a bad deal, okay? He's not going to want to try and get access to the lower prices by buying more. Now, what if they had actually just set the requirement at something like, 40 photos? If you have to buy at least 40, we'd have to add up this area, and it may well be that he's willing to buy an extra 9 photos because on net he'll save. And we all do this anytime that, there's some kind of like buy 2, get 1 free or something like that. We don't really need the second one, but, on average, like we do it basically like, even though we're going to throw away the third can, maybe we get a better deal on the second one or something like that, or we give it away or something like that. So this is, I think, illustrates this kind of model really easily, this idea of self-selection. Everybody has access to the same prices, okay? And to get access to the cheaper price, you have to do something like buy at least 75 photos. Now we can consider what makes price discrimination possible in this case. Remember, you need information and you need an ability to prevent resale. So in this case, it needs to be difficult for people who access the bulk price to then turn around and sell the product to the people who are only able to access the higher price. With photos, that makes a lot of sense. Nobody wants to get somebody else's photos, and so there's not really a resale market for it. But tons of other industries are premised on the idea that this is exactly what you should do, that you buy in bulk and then you distribute at a markup to other people. I mean, that is like how distributors work. They buy in bulk from somebody, and then they carve it up and they sell to the consumers at a higher price. Okay, but lots of quantity discounts and other things where it's too difficult or too costly to find buyers, it's not going to happen very much in those other markets. All right, so we'll do one more example after this video.